Welcome everybody to our webinar. This is Connecting Children with Local Foods and Farmers Through Summer Meal Programs. And we're really excited. Today we're going to be talking to you about serving local foods in the Summer Food Service Program. And we'll also highlight a report that we put out on that topic from earlier this year. So our agenda for the webinar today, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the Summer Food Service Program. I know many of you are probably familiar with the school lunch program or the child and adult care food program that serves preschool age kids. But some people might not be as familiar with the Summer Food Service Program. So we'll give you a little bit of a primer on what that is. And then we'll talk about Farm to Summer initiatives where nutrition professionals are getting local food into those programs' meals. And then we'll hear from our expert panelists. They're going to share their own experiences serving local foods in summer meal food programs. And we'll also hear a little bit from them about how they've been adapting their meal service during the pandemic. We'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. And let me just share a little bit about who our presenters are. And we'll do some housekeeping. I'll let you know how to ask questions and we'll get right into the content. So today we have three amazing panelists. We're going to hear from Deb, who works with the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. She's worked there for quite a while. She's an amazing partner of ours. We've worked with Mille Lacs for a few years. So we started working with their early care program, their Head Start program, to do a farm to early care initiative. And then we partnered with her to get local foods into their summer food program as well. So she'll share her experience. We also have partnered with Angie in Roseville area schools. They're a huge leader in farm to school in Minnesota, and now they've expanded that into their summer food service program. And then we'll hear from Nikki from the Good Acre, which is a local food hub, which does amazing work. They do supply local foods to Roseville area schools, as well as a bunch of other schools. And they're a huge asset to our community, our local foods community here. I'm Erin McKee. I'm going to be moderating today. I work at IATP. I'm the Community Food Systems Program Director. So just a little bit of housekeeping. As we're going through, you can ask questions at any time. So if you look at your screen, if you move your mouse over your screen there, you'll see a little Q&A box. You can type in questions at any time during the presentation, and I'll be kind of keeping an eye on those, and we'll save most of them for the end. If there's something that's really timely or to clarify something, we'll ask it during the presentation, but mostly we'll save them to the end. So feel free to type questions anytime during the presentation. All right, next slide. So let me give you a little bit of background on the Summer Food Service Program, just for some context of how these initiatives are taking place. So we know that schools are critical settings for policies and practices that support school nutrition or kids' nutrition. And many kids rely on these programs to meet the majority of their daily nutritional needs. So in Minnesota, where we're based, in 2016, they identified that 69% of all of Minnesota's school-aged children were eligible for free or reduced priced meals at school. And that is based on family income. And what that can indicate is that those kids really are depending on those meals for the bulk of their nutrition, and they may face hunger outside of school. So one big problem that was recognized is that when school is out of session, there is a hunger gap in the summertime where kids don't have access to those school meals that they depend on. And the Summer Food Service Program was established to meet that need and provide meals to kids during that time. So this is a federal level program. It's funded by the USDA, and in Minnesota, it's administered through the Department of Education. And what they do is they serve free meals and snacks. They're totally free. They're free to any kid under the age of 18 at eligible sites. So local organizations in the communities act as the sponsors, and they are the ones that are responsible for managing the summer meal service. And they also do all the administrative duties around that. And in return, those sponsors are reimbursed for the number of meals that they serve. And they get about $4 per meal for the meals that they serve to the kids. So the site locations are determined based on areas where there are high percentages of students who qualify for free and reduced price meals. So they base those sites in those communities, but something that's really interesting that you may know or may not know, I didn't really know until I was more familiar with the program, is that the kids don't need to register in any way. They don't need to prove that they qualify. They can just walk up and any kid can get a free meal at those sites. It's open to all, there's no registration required. It's a really interesting and cool model. And they serve a lot of meals. So as of 2018, USDA had identified that they served over 145 million summer food service program meals nationwide. At the state level, we served over 160,000 lunches at more than 1,100 sites in 2019. So it is providing a lot of food to kids. Although another thing about it to recognize is that it's actually underutilized. So there are many more kids who qualify for these meals than who actually take advantage of the program. Next slide, please. So when we talk about farm to summer, basically this is an extension of the concept of farm to school or farm to early care, which many of you are familiar with. And the idea is that we want to get local foods into those meals that are being served. And it also can include doing education about where that food came from with the kids. So some kind of community engagement activities, educational activities with the kids who are eating those meals to kind of engage with them and connect them where their food is coming from. And this is rising in popularity nationwide. And in Minnesota, there are many different summer food service programs that are interested in doing this. One of the huge benefits, obviously, in a place like Minnesota, we know that our growing season is at its height during the summer. So this is a really good opportunity to get the freshest, healthiest local foods into these meals and provide year-round access to fresh, healthy foods. Next slide. So the benefits that we see, of course, we want to create access to the fresh, healthy local foods in those communities that face systemic barriers to getting those fresh, healthy foods. So these programs are targeted for those communities that have high percentages of free and reduced meals that they serve. And those communities we know face extra barriers to accessing those foods in general. So that creates an even stronger impact when we can get those fresh foods into the meals that those kids are getting. That creates health benefits. We know that kids who take part in farm to school programs actually eat an additional serving of fruits and vegetables every day. They consume a wider variety of fruits and vegetables, and they're more likely to try new foods. And we know that kids are also developing their taste preferences. So it's really important to influence those eating habits to make them healthy when they're young. And we want to do that year round, not just when school is in session. We also want those farmers to be able to access this as a different market that they can sell into. So for a lot of farmers, they have found that selling to schools and other institutions can be a dependable component of their business plan. And it lets them schedule some sales ahead of time and sell some larger quantities of food at a time. And when school is out of session, we want them to be able to maintain that institutional market. And the timing is really great because it lines up with when they have a lot of product available, the peak harvest time. So it also can be really great for schools to buy the items when they're abundant, and that could mean that the cost will be lower as well. So it benefits all the parties involved. We also really support farm to school programs as a benefit that ripples out through the community. For every dollar that is spent on farm to school foods, we have seen in studies that it actually generates an additional $2.16 of local economic activity. So it's not just that $1 that you're spending on the food itself that impacts your community, since you are recirculating that money in your community and supporting the jobs of people that are also local to you. So that's huge. We also see that can increase participation in the summer meal food programs. So as I mentioned, these programs are underutilized, and by including these fresh, healthy foods in the meals, it makes them more attractive. by doing those educational activities that can make it really fun to attend and go get your meal. And that actually creates more revenue for the nutrition program to, that because they get more reimbursement, it actually gives them more money to work with so they can get even more local food, and it can create a positive feedback loop where it supports even more farm to summer activity as well. So now we're going to get into actually hearing from our partners who have done these programs on the ground. And we're going to start with hearing from our partners from the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and I'll let Deb take it away to tell about her experience doing Farm to Summer with her program.
Anine, can y'all hear me? Well, as Erin said, I'm Deb Foy. I'm with the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe up here on the Lacs Lake. I've worked for them since '92, and we've started a school garden. If you want to do the next slide, please, I'd appreciate it. So yes, we started school garden about 11 years ago. We got help with our band DNR that helped get us some 20 by 20 raised beds. In fact, you can see them kind of in the back of me. We had a lot of learning lessons, but we did a lot. We've renewed them, we've repaired them. We started with some grants and donations, and then once we had those built, I started planting seeds in the classroom with the students, as you can see on this slide. And we had the support of everybody, from the teachers who had to clear up time in their curriculum, to the administrators who had to deal with me working a little bit different routine, and to the custodians who had to help clean up the mess. So after we'd start the seeds in the classroom, once they germinated, the students would come and get me, and I would provide them with a grow light. They watered and cared for their plants, and when they got big enough, as you can see in this slide, we transplanted them into larger containers, and they continued taking care of them until the end of the school year. And next slide, please. Then we would take them up to the gardens, and the kids would help me plant. So that's the background of our garden. That wasn't so much farm to school, but that did help me meet up with some farmers to bring in produce. And last year, I also partnered with the SNAP Ed department and the SHIP grant coordinator, who helped provide us with multiple activities. Next picture, please. So this is some of the harvesting that went on. The kids could take it, and they picked right from the garden. As you can see, they often tasted it up in the garden, or if they had an abundance, we used them in our salad bars, or they could take some home to share with their families. Next picture, please. So last summer, as I mentioned, the SNAP Ed and SHIP helped with some activities. This is our cucumber crunch. Jolene, you want to explain a little bit about this? Are you still there, Jolene? No? So anyway, are you there, Jolene? Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, yes. We collaborated, and yes, the cucumber crunch was a fun activity with the kids. We made vegetable snakes. Deb and I cut up some of the cucumbers from the garden. And so as you can see, some of the students, they worked together in groups at the table or separately. I think there were around 100 or 125 students that came with parents that day. And then with the little cherry tomatoes for eyes as well that they were making. So we did several different recipes similar to this throughout the summer. I think there were about 7 collaborations that Snap Ed did with Deb, and then yeah, SHIP helped out quite a bit as well. So it was a great time.
Yes, SHIP helped coordinate a plant walk, and we don't have any pictures of that. But Colleen, are you there? Can you talk about the plant walk a little bit? Well, we had an ethnobiologist come, and she took the children and us on tour around the school, showing us medicinal and edible wild plants. It was so exciting. It was so interesting. And the children were so engaged. They asked wonderful questions. They sampled the wild plants. And I really wish we had some pictures on here of that. That would have been great.
Deb, I'm on now.
Okay.
I appreciate you guys letting me talk a little bit, and I do have photos if people are interested in seeing some of the photos of the plant walk. I just don't have them connected today. Deb was the central planner with all of this, and I think basically what I was able to do as the SHIP and Tobacco Grant Coordinator was fill in some of the gaps. One of the things was to bring ethnobotanist Linda Black Elk to the school, and as Deb said, she did a plant walk with students from not just this district but also the other districts. And Linda Black Elk always says she can find edible and medicinal plants in the cracks of a sidewalk, and I think she proved it that day, because within about a 2 or 3 block radius of the school, I think she identified 12 to 15 edible and medicinal plants for the kids to learn about. And what struck me the most about it was that there were students who were just transfixed with the information. They were taking in every word, drinking in every word, and it was obvious that that information was something that meant a lot to them. And the other thing that struck me was during the plant walk, one of the things Linda talked about was milkweed. And she mentioned that the milkweed blossom is sweet to taste and it's edible. And one of the little girls in the group tasted it and said, "I don't think that's sweet." And Linda very clearly explained that a person needs to educate their taste buds, their palate, and to learn to eat things that aren't super sweet or super salty that come processed. And anyway, so that plant walk experience, I think, was a great way to bring Indigenous knowledge into the program that Deb is already doing so marvelously. And that's all. I'll hand it back to you, Deb.
Okay, so next slide, please. So this is a picture of our school gardens, and they don't produce a lot, so we did rely on several farmers in the area to help us with our projects and our activities last summer. I think that's about it for us. And I had so much help with and support with different departments around that I couldn't have done it by myself. So, miigwech.
And this is Erin. I was able to attend one of the plant walks with Linda Black Elk, and it was really amazing. She was able to find so many different edible plants, and then she was able to in a very accessible way, explain the connection with cultural traditions as well, which I think was a really powerful thing that Deb supported and Jolene and Colleen supported in their program, was making that connection with traditional Indigenous foods and trying to get some of those foods into the menu items that they were serving and make that real for the kids. And especially by bringing in local experts from the community, I feel like it was such a dynamic and powerful program that they were able to build. And I saw the excitement in the kids that they were able to experience that. It was really transformative. And I learned so much by by partnering with all of you. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. So next we're gonna hand it over to Angie to talk about Roseville's Farm to Summer program.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Angie Ritchie, the Nutrition Services Director for Roseville Area Schools, which for those of you who aren't familiar is a first-ring suburb just north of St. Paul. Next slide. I'm just going to briefly go through the demographics of our district, our mission, and our farm to school event that we had last year. Obviously, this summer is looking much different. And then just reflecting on the future of farm to school. Next slide. So overview of the demographics that we serve. We are about just over 8,500 with our pre-K included. We've got a very diverse district. About half of our students qualify for free or reduced meals. So we know that we have a lot of students that might be food insecure at home. Therefore, they might be relying a little bit more heavily on the meals that they receive in schools. Next slide. So this is the district enrollment by ethnicity over the last decade. You can see that the diversity of our district is going up. And next slide. You can see here what demographics are coming and moving into Roseville. So these are the languages most spoken at home other than English. So a lot of our materials have to go out in Spanish, Hmong, Karen, Somali, and our Nepali community is the largest and fastest growing for the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. So some communication barriers, but we definitely work with our cultural liaisons to make sure that we can get all of the good news about what's happening in Roseville Nutrition Services out to our families. Next slide. This is a trend of our families that are qualifying for free or reduced meals. We had been seeing a slight plateau. We'll see what this pandemic does to this curve. But again, we know that our families, about half of our families are in need of nutrition support. Next slide. And lastly, I just wanted to quickly touch on our equity vision. Equity is not what we do, rather it is the lens through which we make all decisions in our district. What and how we feed our children is a heavy decision that we must consider many factors in, but the most important of which is equity. All right, next slide. So we do operate many programs to make sure that our kids don't go hungry. We feed at least 2 meals a day at all sites, and most sites also do an after-school snack program. Some sites even offer a midday fresh fruit or vegetable snack through the SFSP program. We've integrated farm to school in our lunch and our FFVP programs. And we're looking for a way to expand our use of local items, and that's when we dove into the summer food service program. Next slide. Oh, sorry, we have our little arrow enter. Next slide. All right, so through working with the Good Acre and IATP, and through securing a grant for $1,000 through IATP, we were able to do some marketing videos. And we did a series on the Food Hub's perspective, a student's perspective, my perspective, and it was really great to be able to share those with our community through our social media pages, and also it was adorable to gather the perspective. I highly encourage you to watch this video if you're able to hear from a student why it was important to her that the cucumbers we were featuring on the lunch menu in our program for summer were local. I think we make a lot of assumptions about what kids like, what kids want, what kids think about food. You know, we think, oh, if I put a chicken nugget in front of them, they're gonna like it. Kids these days are so much more food savvy, and their tastes are global. It is just amazing when you actually get to sit down and talk with kids about why they eat what they do and how they would help make changes to your program. They also have no filter, so they're very candid in their opinions and what they share with you. It's lovely. So we were able to make a video series and do other marketing techniques. Next slide. So we did a big celebration on one particular day in July. I did have an intern who handled a lot of the marketing materials. She made this great photo booth, as you can see. We didn't realize until a month later that cucumber was actually missing an E. And we got a good laugh out of that. We were surprised no kids pointed that out. But we had balloons and streamers, the photo booth. We handed out stickers. We did a big countdown. Our staff, our nutrition services staff, were engaged. They came in early that day just so that they could help put streamers because they wanted to. And they were excited to serve the meal. Next slide. So here you can see a little bit of what our service line looked like. We had streamers as kids walked in the door, and we had just a lot of green things. We had labels, I didn't include that. We had labels on where the cucumbers were from, a little picture of Minnesota with a heart around the exact farm they were from. And the kids were, as soon as they walked in the door, knew something was a little bit different about this day. And on the right, we had some stickers that we got from, it was called Learning Zone Express, and I know that the company has since changed hands, but you can get local stickers, and kids will eat just about anything if you give them a sticker, as I've learned. Next slide. Oh, let's go back a slide. So some of the things that we had to think through was how we were going to source our food. We could source through a prime vendor, we could source through our Department of Defense produce, and then we could source through a food hub. And we chose to source through a food hub. And we had been working with the Good Acre previously on what we could bring in, what was seasonal, what we could afford. And that was very helpful because we had already established that relationship with them. In addition to that, I had my intern working on posters, and she used Canva, C-A-N-V-A, which is a free sort of graphic design website to make beautiful pictures. She also did a big invite. So in addition to celebrating with the kiddos, we brought in some stakeholders to eat a meal with our kiddos. And that included members of our school board, local representatives. We even had some senators, representatives there. Everyone who might have a part to play in terms of farm to school and farm to school funding. I wanted them to see what they actually look like. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect. So I think it's really important to share your story as much as possible when you do celebrate things like this, to let them know that you are going the extra mile for your kids, and all that work you put into sourcing and marketing. We want to make sure that our stakeholders know and understand what that means to our kids and how important it is to our kids. Just a reflection on the actual day. We had streamers as you walk in the door. I think I got them from a local Party City, and it was probably $2. When the kids walked through that cafeteria door and had to walk through green streamers, they were so excited. It was like a party to have this special vegetable day. It was loud in the cafeteria. Most cafeterias are loud, but when you get kids hyped up, as we wanted to do, I don't have a teacher voice. I didn't have a megaphone. Had I done it again, I would have had a megaphone because we did do a great big countdown, and we wanted everyone to crunch at the same time. I don't know that half of the cafeteria could hear me, but it was fun regardless. And just another reflection, after everybody crunched down on their cucumbers, I had a line of kids coming up to me to ask for seconds, like I was handing out Halloween candy. And it was really exciting to see that because it was a vegetable. And sometimes we don't think of vegetables as maybe exciting, but we were able to make them exciting, and it was all in part due to this grant through IATP, but making it a point to celebrate farm to school in our summer food service program. So that is our Cucumber Crunch of 2019 in a nutshell. Thanks for joining.
And I was also at that Cucumber Crunch, and it was totally amazing. Angie is definitely one of the leaders in our state and I think nationwide in really making a commitment to local purchasing And I know we couldn't play her video today, but I would encourage you all, we will include the link to the videos that we made during the summer last year so that you can actually see Esme's video is not the only one, there are several. So if you wanted to get a good picture of everything that she did, there is a little video set that you can check out and see the actual kids enjoying their cucumbers and counting down to crunch them together. And her story is a very good segue to hear from the Good Acre. As Angie said, she actually was getting a lot of her local produce through the Good Acre. And we'll hear from Nikki about the work that they do around Farm to Summer, Farm to School in Minnesota.
All right, thanks, Erin. And thanks, Angie, for your presentation. My name is Nikki Warner. I am the Communications Director at the Good Acre. The Good Acre is a nonprofit food hub located in Falcon Heights. Roseville area schools is actually probably our closest neighbor. So we're really glad to have been partnering with them for a couple years before they this Farm to Summer program started up. So we had an established relationship in helping them procure local produce. Go ahead and kick it to the next slide. So a food hub, according to the USDA, they have a fancy definition of what a food hub is. At our facility, we have, we basically function as an aggregator for small local farmers. So they can participate in wholesale markets that they might not be able to serve on their own. So by aggregating produce, we can meet the demands of larger wholesale buyers such as schools, higher ed, other food service management companies that operate in like corporate cafeterias and whatnot. The Good Acre is really focused on trying to expand markets for small farmers into markets that are traditionally really underserved, local food options. We have a 15,000 cubic foot cold storage facility in our warehouse. So farmers can bring produce right from the field to the hub. They can wash, sort, pack, store. We have the logistics to do distribution. And we also, the marketing from the food hub standpoint is really marketing information about growers to our buyers like Angie, and also just continuing to find new outlets for local farm produce. Go ahead and kick it to the next slide. So, you know, for many farmers, selling to schools can be a real dependable component of their business plan. We make it really easy to order with an online order portal. Some of the marketing that we do is in this weekly wholesale newsletter. For example, this was a screenshot from one of last year's newsletters. Watermelon is a super popular item for, you know, summer food service programs or farm to school in general in September, whenever they're still in season. So we'll share lots of just anecdotes from the farm, pictures from the farm visits that we do whenever we're as part of our grower support program. Let's see. And then, you know, they can log into this online order portal anytime it's open 24/7, you know, to see what's new, what's in season, and place the order for the following week. I guess you can kick it to the next slide too. So one thing that we learned, you know, is that I think that, you know, if you just go by like what's in the grocery store, you might have a false sense of what the seasonality of produce is. So we've developed our local seasonality chart that we share with our buyers so that, you know, we can make sure that the cucumbers are ready whenever the cucumber crunch is happening. I think, you know, it's important to build relationships with, you know, with your food hub, with your growers, so you know when they're going to have what you're trying to promote. So, you know, one benefit of our relationship with Roseville is that we can do pre-season planning. They can tell us what their harvest of the month, their Minnesota Thursdays plans are ahead of time, so that we can make sure that those crops are being grown and are ready for whenever they're ready to use them and serve them. I think also peak seasonality, you know, the timing of the summer food service program lines up with many local, you know, what's in season or what's at its peak. So that can translate to lower costs for the summer meals food service provider, but also peak freshness, which is, you know, part of what gets kids so excited about, you know, crunching into a fresh cucumber. I think also, you know, whether you're able to work with the food hub or not, you know, it's important to stay true to the integrity of farm to summer by sourcing items as locally as you can. If you are out state and don't have a food hub to partner with, Minnesota Grown has a really great directory of farms that are participating in wholesale channels, so that you can start fostering those relationships yourself. And then, you know, I think that it's just really important to, you know, support local farmers through programs like this. It helps keep the local food economy going. It helps ensure farm viability. Actually, you can go to the next slide. Have a few just other benefits of a farm to summer and farm to school in general. And really that's, you know, as a nonprofit food hub organization, supporting farm viability in the Twin Cities is really what we're hoping to do. So really are just so excited to see how school districts in the Twin Cities and beyond have been embracing local foods in their food service programs. And yeah, I think that does it. Erin, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Nikki. We do have one question that is coming through to you, wondering about how the Good Acre is funded, and if you happen to know how much of your food hub is funded through your sales. Mm-hmm.
So we have a variety of programs. The wholesale program has kind of, it's been growing since we opened our doors 5 years ago. It's not the biggest chunk of our funding. We have the wholesale program. We had a cooking class program, which is on hold due to COVID. Our farm share program, which is kind of like a CSA, is and continues to be our largest revenue generating program. It was the first program that we had in order to just buy lots of produce from local farmers and get it out into the community. But we also rely pretty heavily on grant funding, foundation funds, and just, you know, individual donations. So I'd say that our wholesale is probably about 15 to 20% of that piece of pie of revenue for our food hub.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, I guess just calling you a food hub might give people a little bit of the wrong impression, because you guys do so much more than just that role. Like that is an extremely vital role, mm-hmm. but you also do a lot of other community work, mm-hmm. which I think we'll get into a little bit in our next question. But I do want to highlight that you and some of our other local food hubs too often end up doing a lot more than just being the kind of providing that service of aggregation. Mm-hmm. I did want to highlight, I love this slide about working with food hubs and how that helps farm to school. If you happen to have a food hub nearby, the partners that have had that benefit that we've partnered with, it is amazing, because I think one of the things that we all know if we've tried to do these programs is that the system as it is set up is not made so that buying local is the default position for school nutrition programs. And so there's a lot of work that can be involved in kind of doing the research, finding the farms, you know, coordinating separate purchases with all of them. And that is the service that a food hub can provide for you, where they know all the farmers. And if you connect with one food hub, you're connecting with, you know, a pool of local farmers that they can aggregate the food. You can get one delivery, one invoice. You're not the one having to coordinate all of those purchases. And it is really amazing for nutrition services when that exists in their communities. I know not everybody has one, but definitely the Good Acre is just a huge asset. So yeah. Thanks so much, Nikki.
Thanks, Erin.
So that segues into our next question, I think, because I know that the Good Acre and our other partners, obviously every school has had to do a lot of adaptation in this time of the pandemic on really short notice. They had to switch their entire meal delivery service to respond to this new distance situation. And I would love to hear from each of you about how you have adapted to COVID-19. And what I've noticed that some of the programs that I've seen providing food during the pandemic have built on that summer food service model. So I would love to hear from all of you about what you've been doing during this pandemic to get food to your kids. Ooh, look at Angie now.
Yeah, I just stole these. Can you hear me?
You sound great.
Okay, great. I just stole these from my husband because priorities. So Roseville made a switch over in about 2 days. Our kiddos came back from break. They had 2 days off, and we switched our service models to 21 bus stops, 3 drive-through pickup sites, and home deliveries once a week. So far, from March 18th to now, we've served about 250,000 meals. We've had partnerships with the Sheridan Story, who provides shelf-stable food to help cover weekends, and with their Grow and Give campaign to provide a fresh local bag of produce to our families each week. So in addition to that, we were able to get a Farm to School grant. So we began integrating local produce into our summer meal packs just the last couple of weeks, and will through the end of our summer programming. So through the Good Acre, we've been able to buy green beans, bell peppers, cucumbers, and cherry tomatoes. Our summer meal service is down, which I was a little surprised, but it's likely due to other food support programs that are operating during this pandemic. And so we're just looking at next year, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Roseville has opted for the distance learning model. So we're looking at home delivered meals. And we do have a couple sites, our smaller sites, that are doing 100% return to school. So just last night, I got an email. A farmer was looking to get rid of some lettuce that they had planted that another school district couldn't use. So we're going to try to scoop that up, make sure that they have a purchaser, and get that on our menus. But it's definitely been a challenge. March was crazy. Summer was crazy. This fall will be crazy, but we're making it work. And any way that we can continue to include local foods, we will. Our priority is to make sure that kids not only don't go hungry, but are given the nutritious meals that they've come to deserve from schools, or come to expect from schools, and definitely deserve. So that is our next challenge to be solved.
Deb, how about you?
Well, yeah, just like Angie, we had to switch really fast in March. We got online in 2 days too, where we started delivering meals. We're a small school, so we actually did home delivery 5 days a week to our students for about the first month or so. And then we switched to 3 days a week. So Mondays we would take out Monday and Tuesday meals, Wednesday and Thursdays, such and such. So we did that through the end of the school year, and then started up our summer food program right away. And that looked a lot different too, because we kept delivering meals to the houses. This one program, our NEGON program, that's usually our biggest participator for our summer foods, wasn't able to have their programs as normal, but they picked up meals from us and delivered them to their clients or their participants. So that actually gave us a bigger summer food participation than normal, because more children got reached that way. And our summer school students got delivered their meals too. That was just a Monday through Thursday program. And as our garden started producing, we incorporated a lot of our vegetables into our menus. Jolene did some outreach to the students through her SNAP Ed program, delivering those products here, and then the drivers would pick them up and deliver them to the homes with the meals. And Colleen helped me again this year by providing some funds for repairing our gardens. They were in desperate need of new timbers and more dirt and stuff. So her grants were able to pay for some of those expenses. And yeah, now we're looking towards the next school year. Our school, like I said, being small, has opted for the modified module. We will have students in school 4 days a week, and some of our families are opting for the distance learning. So my cooks and I will be sending out meals 5 days a week and serving on site 4 days a week. So it's going to be crazy, but we'll do it.
Wow, that's really amazing, both of you. I am living in Minneapolis, and in Minneapolis, what they have done is provided boxes every week. So usually with the summer food service program, the child has to be present on site and eat the meal on site, and they just get that one meal at a time. They made some modifications to the model where they could give you a week's worth of the meals all in the box, and they also were not requiring the child to come. A parent could come and let them know how many kids they had, and then they could get a box of meals for that entire week. And I've been taking advantage of that. It's been a huge help. It just actually is the final week of those summer food service boxes in Minneapolis this week. So we got our last one. And I was telling the nutrition director there how huge of a help it has been during this time of working from home and cooking all of our meals at home, to have some meals that were prepared that we didn't have to make for our kid was just probably the largest helpful intervention for our family for COVID. So I just want to express my thanks to all the school food professionals who have been working overtime and trying to figure out. I know that your priority is getting food to your kids, and I'm just so impressed with how school food professionals have risen to this challenge and really met that need. Nikki, could you talk a little bit about how this has affected you and your farmers, especially farmers who rely on institutional sales?
Yeah, a lot of those farm to institution relationships kind of dried up overnight in March, with office cafeterias closing, with schools closing. And it's been a big readjustment just as we've tried to find new markets for all that produce. You know, the pandemic began in March, which is still vegetable winter in Minnesota. So things didn't really start rolling in until mid to late June. But for the fall, I don't know, I guess really in the last month is whenever produce has really been rolling in, and it's been a lot more challenging for us to find a home for it. We, in collaboration with a few other partners, created this LEAF fund, the Local Emergency Assistance Farmer Fund, which is basically a guarantee to purchase produce from farmers and direct it to area food shelf partners, so that produce that maybe would have gone to a school or other institution can now get to people who really need it. So our warehouse has still been kind of busier than ever now, with farmers, primarily, you know, small emerging BIPOC farmers, dropping off their produce in our warehouse, and then usually that happens on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and by Fridays it's right back out into communities in need. There have been a few school districts that are still really trying to stay true and honor, you know, their commitments to source local. Like Angie mentioned, you know, they've gotten, you know, cucumbers and bell peppers. I also think that the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has been really supportive in creating their rapid response. I think it was a portion of like agri-grant funds that they were allocating for schools to apply to continue to purchase local foods. So I think that's been a really great effort to support those schools who are continuing to make efforts to do farm to school. But, you know, purchasing local produce really goes hand in hand with scratch cooking and with limited, you know, cafeteria operations. It's going to be tough for any school district to, you know, kind of do what they did in previous years. It's really just been ramping up since we opened our doors 5 years ago. So, you know, we are finding alternative markets for local farm produce that was destined for schools. Schools are still trying to do as much as they can, but, you know, we're just going to take it as it comes and see how the rest of the growing season pans out.
Great. Thank you, Nikki.
Mhm.
We do have a few questions that have come in through the Q&A, and if anyone else has questions, do feel free to type them into that Q&A and we'll try to get to as many as we can here. So one person is wondering if there's a national directory of local farms that sell wholesale. And not to my knowledge, I don't believe there is. However, I would recommend in your own state to look at your own state's Department of Agriculture, because they probably have their own wholesale directory. Just by, here, we'll start my video here. Just by its nature, of course, local foods are going to be local to your state. So that is the best place that I can recommend to look for that kind of directory. So in Minnesota, our Minnesota Department of Agriculture has the Minnesota Grown Wholesale Directory. But it is always a challenge to try to find farmers. What about, do either Deb or Angie or Nikki, do you have advice about how to actually find the farmers that you want to purchase from?
I don't know, they kind of fell into my lap a lot of times. Initially, a farmer contacted me and she was very instrumental into, I would call it, making a little tiny food hub of her own that I purchased from up until this year when she retired. And then I met some other farmers at farm to school workshops earlier this past school year before the Corona made us stay home. But that's how I have met farmers. And now I got the Minnesota directory so I can look at more too.
We have had established relationships with quite a few of our farmers and producers for years. But there's been times when I've tried to establish new relationships by asking people at my local farmers market, are you able to scale up to meet institutional needs? Sometimes they say yes, most of the time they say no if they're at a farmer's market, but it depends. I would think it really depends on the size of your school district. I'm a little too big for most of the farmers market farmers. I've also asked current farmers, like I asked our turkey farmer, hey, we're looking to integrate local pork on our menu. Do you know of anyone who has similar animal husbandry practices, is certified responsible antibiotic use? And they gave me the name of a pig farmer, and it was a very small pig farmer, and they had to save up pork shoulders for about 6 months in the freezers before we could have a menu day and meet the pounds that we needed, but we made it work. And sometimes you just have to think outside the box. Sometimes they're limited on storage space. So, and this is meat, but if you can provide a freezer for them to use or slowly collect some of the food that you're going to use for them, you can reduce some of those obstacles. What's wonderful about having a food hub like the Good Acre around is they do a lot of the work for you. They're the ones who are looking into the farms, making sure that they're either GAP certified or have food safety measures in place to make it safe for you to put on your children's menu. And they're the aggregator. So if I say I need 300 pounds of carrots on a given menu day, and suddenly one crop fails in one part of our state, or they're working with several small farmers to meet that poundage, they're a wonderful resource. I know we're very fortunate to have them in our backyard. But I think start talking to your farm network, and if there's something specific you're looking for, just start with the questions, and this is a lovely community. People are willing to share.
Hi there. Yeah, I would also, recommend Local Harvest. Has a pretty good network or listing of wholesale farm. Sorry, got a little person in the background there. Local Harvest is a really great resource. Also, I think whenever it comes to, finding farmers that can do wholesale, if you are near a college or university with an extension program, a lot of the time those folks will have an idea of what growers are out there that are looking to scale up or that do have diversified enough offerings to meet, the demands that you might have as a wholesale buyer. Yeah.
Great. We also had a question about how much, or if you are able to serve culturally responsive menu items like meals and recipes to your kids in your nutrition programs. Deb, what about you? Do you serve any culturally significant items?
Yes, we do. And our students actually help harvest a lot of those. We have wild rice on our menu, being that's a staple of the Ojibwe people. We have that in several varieties. The students go out in the fall and help harvest it and then help process it. In the spring, they go out and to the sugar bush and maple syrup or sugar, and then they help process it into syrup, and we have a pancake feast and to have that. And they also go fishing, spearing, and get the fish, and then we have a fish fry. Other than that, throughout the year, I don't buy any wild game per se for them, but that is a cultural thing, and that is something that I have started trying to locate a vendor that I could provide venison or bison to do every now and then for a meal, for a cultural meal.
So we have been working with our cultural liaisons to integrate some new recipes and try to find some home recipes that can be scaled up to the quantity that we're in need of, which can be a challenge. It has been a challenge in the past. In the past 4 years since I've been with Roseville, our first targeted area was entrees. And we've got some great feedback, especially from a particular group of high schoolers. And we've worked to integrate, like this, just this past year, we did put some dumplings and fried rice on the menu. We have a very large Asian demographic, but they are a geographically diverse Asian demographic. So while we collect district level information, they actually have very different diets within that demographic. We've had some more plant-based options on their menu, teriyaki chicken over white rice for breakfast, things of that nature. But we're always looking to expand our repertoire. And that will eventually bleed into vegetables. So our main focus was entrees at first, but we'd like to have the accompanying vegetable also match that meal. Of course, we want to have a uniform palette on each of our menu days. So we're also, again, I keep singing the praises of the Good Acre. They've got an amazing chef who is just phenomenal, and she works to create school kitchen friendly recipes and large scale recipes. In the past, we've also done some trainings with them. So we bring in each of our site managers, sort of a trainer model, where she's worked to say, all right, here is a pick-em-up. Here is kohlrabi the size of your head. Here's how you deal with it. So that will be the next area I think that we start to focus on, is how we can get culturally relevant vegetables on our menu.
Thanks for that shout out, Angie. Yeah, we have a culinary education manager on staff, and during this pandemic downtime, really, she's been able to develop some cool new recipes. She's made like bear spiced kale, cauliflower tostadas, things like that. Really, so that whenever Farm to School is ready to ramp up again, that we're poised to really hit the ground running with some fresh new recipes and serve kids some really tasty things. As a food hub, we've learned that you can't just sell like 1,000 pounds of butternut squash to a school and expect it to go well. And so this culinary training that has also really been, our way to invest in sustainable and successful farm to school programs for our school partners. So.
Thank you, my friends. If you could go to the next slide. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but I think that some of them are addressed in the Farm to Summer report that we put out. The link is on the screen there. The concept of the cucumber crunch and some ideas around that are contained in there, and also links on how you might want to start your own Farm to Summer program in your own state or your own district. There are a lot of resources available through USDA, through the National Farm to School Network, and other places that have done these programs, as well as our amazing panelists here whose case studies are included in our report. So please check that out, and hopefully it can help you all get started on your own successful programs. I want to thank our panelists today. It was amazing to hear your stories. And thanks to all of you who attended. Please be well and take care of yourselves, and hopefully we will see you again soon.